Today's episode is a bit of a special one, really, as it's a sort of festive period. I had a request from a little listener called Charlotte Biggs, age 6, that I should interview this next gentleman. Apparently, she'd written to him and sent him in her letter contact details of mine, care of the podcast. And I was, very surprised at this, to be contacted by this person who's actually quite busy this time of year. So welcome to the show. Well, it's just got you down as Saint Nicholas.
Yes, I mean that is my formal title and name. I am known by many names around the world, and it depends entirely in which language you're talking. But I mean Saint Nicholas. I mean the big guy. Big N. Yeah,
okay,
that'll roll.
Well, what do I call you for short? Saint? That's a bit...
Well, I mean, we're talking between friends. So, Nick.
Yeah. Okay. All right then.
Nick will do.
Right. Okay. So, I've got a traditional first question, which is,
of course,
what do you do?
I work extraordinarily hard one night a week, one night a year. No, I've been upgrading the systems here at the North Pole to help with the naughty and nice lists. Of course, that has been up to recent times. That has been a manual process. But we have actually just upgraded our systems internally, and so we are now using special algorithms.
Okay. Is that some sort of what's that? Some sort of elf or something?
Yes, it is. It's Microsoft Nissa. Is the program that we use, and Nissa is the name that the Scandinavians use for my little helpers. But yes, it's a proprietary program that we've worked in conjunction with Bill Gates and his team. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you actually do?
Well, I do my best to ensure that children all around the world, and let's face it, everyone's a child at some point in their life, but they get to have a jolly good time around this sort of time of year. It does. I mean, if you consider that I am actually breaking and bending the laws of the sort of space and time in order to deliver to 7+ billion human beings around the planet. That does take quite a bit of maintenance, and we have to do we're always looking at testing on the sledge, and we are finding that there are some people trying to get sort of this industrial espionage. So I do spend a lot of my time actually making sure that we're not getting our systems hacked, because let's face it, we wouldn't want some people getting control of the sort of technology that we have here at Santa HQ. So,
right.
but yeah, I mean, my job is spreading joy and happiness. And slapping naughty people on the bottom.
Okay. Well,
that's just the sort of the off hours,
yes,
when one relaxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually quite interested in this because obviously, as you say, this idea of being able to bend time would be obviously quite. Well, you think about all the management books. That their focus is all about time management. I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, if you wrote a book about that, you'd make a fortune, wouldn't you?
Well, one yes. I mean, it's been floated as an idea in the think tank that we have each year after the successful delivery of presents. We always do a kind of after action review, and we're always looking at ways and means that we can extend the brand and sort of make, I don't know, the idea of what Santa Claus or Krampus or Father Christmas Christmas or Juleman or whatever you call him is in your particular area. We do feel that it would be perhaps against the spirit of things if we were to let the proverbial cat out of the bag on this one.
I think so. I think so.
I think it is up to people to find their way to a good work-life balance themselves, and part and parcel of that is, of course, taking time off over Christmas and spending it with family and loved ones.
Yes.
But you know, Christmas isn't just for Christmas; it's for the whole year.
Yes. Okay. I get your gist. Yeah, because obviously, I think
the philosophy behind it, of course.
Yes. Yeah. I totally get that. Totally get. So, when did I know this sounds a bit of a silly question, but this is the sort of plan of my podcast is to sort of track the trajectory.
Yes.
Of people's sort of lives, and when you started to get interested in something. But of course, you've been doing this for a long time.
Yes.
So, how did you get started?
Well, it goes back an awful long time. There is an assumption, of course, that Santa Claus is exclusively a creation, a manufacturing of the sort of post-Christian church and the world that followed that. But if you look at it, actually, there are traditions that go back through vast pagan traditions. Yes. So I am I'm not really a deity, because that would be to over sort of egg the pudding, because this isn't a belief system apart from basically don't be a dick, which is sort of the sort of hashtag that we did try to run that as a hashtag, but we thought that sort of, again, working with the Santa brand, perhaps not quite, the target audience wasn't exactly right on this one. So we've just said be nice, because that's basically it. But no, I mean, I've been around for a very, very long time. I got into this gig basically when it was realized that we had to reward people for actually just being good human beings, and remind them that being good is its own reward. I mean, it is. There isn't just, I mean, we don't deliver presents because you've been good. It's a kind of fringe benefit. It's a halo effect, as it were.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
So, I mean, be good anyway, because that's just a reward in and of itself. But also, if you are good, maybe this strange bearded gentleman will come down a chimney you don't have in your modern house and somehow deliver sack full of presents to you. But that's how we roll. But I started off. I mean, so far as I am aware, and I have a memory that goes back a long, long time, there was an extraordinarily loud bang about 13 or so billion years ago, and that's roughly the first thing that I remember. So I've been hanging around in various forms in the cosmos since then. It's become very intense, my workload, in the last few thousand years. But I've been sort of noodling about, sort of on the periphery of various other deities and belief systems in some way, shape, or form.
I'm quite interested in this. Did you get into the idea of delivering presents to non-humans before?
Yes, absolutely. Very, very much so. I mean, you would find there would be sort of, I don't know, small sort of dinosaurs that were perhaps a little low on food, would wake up one morning and find a smaller dinosaur had been slaughtered and left next to them in the nest. So it was...
Oh, that's interesting, because I thought, if you'd actually wrap the presents, it's really quite difficult for some of those dinosaurs, because they've got such little hands, to actually unwrap.
Exactly. I mean, we did do some focus groups with the Tyrannosaurus Rexes. And they did get, I mean, pardon my French, they did get awfully pissed off when we handed them wrapped up presents, and they were like, nope, can't do this.
No. They can play the piano, but they can't.
Yes, they could. Very small pianos.
Yeah.
We did provide them with very small pianos, which they did love, actually. It's one of the tragedies I found of the immensity of existence, is that some of the music that was created by Dinosaurs is just no longer heard. Whilst we had the technology at that point to create the instruments, we couldn't record it. The formats just weren't right.
Well, even if the format was right, it would have been changed. A bit like now,
Precisely. I mean, recording on wood was something we tried. But then it just burnt down. And then, of course, there was the whole like meteor comet thing, and that just totally erased their back catalogue. One foul swoop. Tragedy.
Well,
tragedy.
I was just thinking about the sort of recordings that I've done in the past, which were on like cassette. I can't even get access to them. I mean, so
that's true. I mean,
it goes on.
Exactly, and I mean, if you consider that as a trial, just imagine trying to get stuff that was actually sort of it fossilized.
Yeah,
I mean, how in God's name were we supposed to?
Well, I know a few musicians who are fossilized.
Indeed, there are a number.
There are, particularly, yeah, absolutely. So the thing is, then you obviously didn't always go around wearing red and riding a sleigh. I get the thing about sleighs because that's one of those. I think about lots of other. I know you didn't like to refer to yourself as a deity, but there's certainly a lot of deities around that had chariots and
absolutely
and stuff like that. So I get that. I get all how that works. But what's with the red thing?
Well, I mean that is purely a marketing ploy. Right. I mean, I have been in the past. I've been green for many years. Yeah. That was one, but it was just. I mean, we wanted to play with stuff. I mean, red is it's. I mean, it's a cool color. And those chaps at Ferrari. I mean, those cars are very sexy. So it was kind of like once we saw they were playing around with this sort of stuff, and it was just like, every so often you like to refresh the brand. It's always good to do that.
Every couple of thousand years or something.
Exactly. It seems to be a good idea to do that. I mean, there are some organizations that refresh their brand more consistently than that or continuously, but we decided after a couple of thousand years, different color. Let's see how it goes. And it also, I mean, it does help, given that our HQ is based in what is quite a, shall we say, chilly and cold area, where everything is fundamentally white. Having something green, kind of, you're not sure. I mean, is that actually a living thing? Is that someone we need to be important? So the red just gave us an opportunity to say, okay, that is definitely somebody we need to be paying attention to.
Yeah. So you sort of stand out.
Exactly.
That makes sense. That's good.
Yes.
So, so sort of fascinating.
I would just like to put to rest. I mean, this has absolutely nothing, of course, to do with any sponsorship deal with soft drink companies.
No, I get that.
Not at all. That's an urban myth. That's an urban myth.
Yeah.
It was definitely, we preceded that, and we have received absolutely no royalties from the branding. None at all.
No, well,
absolutely. I want to make that absolutely crystal clear.
And just for the record, they are a name not to be spoken on this podcast. So,
of course not. The brand that shall not be named.
Exactly. And I'm drinking tea, so just
exactly. Sugary drinks not good for your kids.
No, absolutely not. Totally. Brilliant. So what about your workforce then? I've always been fascinated by.
Well, we are a very inclusive workforce. We do favor a policy that deals with minorities, literally. I mean, they are very small.
Yeah.
So we do employ a lot of them, and there are. I mean, I've seen some people where there's okay. How do you pay these chaps? And of course, it is with bed and board. I mean, they have a place to live 365 days a year. They work in various departments. We have a very, very extensive research department, of course. We have a huge, absolutely ginormous IT department. I mean, you wouldn't believe the size of that bloody place. I mean, they have so much to do. And then, of course, we have the people that are going out and working alongside the major toy manufacturers around the world, and ensuring that we're very guerrilla. We're very guerrilla.
Oh, okay.
We try not to be too visible until the sort of pertinent moment. And of course, we try not to be visible even during the delivery system process of the whole chain. However, we will be sending, it's like whenever you receive that email or that idea suddenly pops into your head about, oh, I should maybe do that. That is not necessarily an idea you've had unprompted.
Yes, no, I get that. Yeah.
I mean, this has to come from somewhere, of course, and people talk about it as inspiration, but quite often I think you'll find that it will be the result of our research department then getting in touch with the outreach teams who will then proceed around the world, dropping little gems of wisdom into the ears of designers and toy manufacturers. And they will be sitting there congratulating themselves in January when they see their sales figures going through the roof. But of course, we will have helped them in that process by ensuring that they have great ideas very early on.
Yes. Well, actually, I get that, because obviously with the idea of the podcast that you're on, is that creativity, and that is something that keeps coming up time and time again. That the human might be part of the process, but you're only the sort of conduit or part of the alchemy. That idea comes from somewhere, and obviously, as humans, we don't actually understand that at all. So we tend to think that's just a thought, a process of some sort of neuron exchange or something.
Totally. I mean, if you look at the quantum mechanics, I mean, there are the ideas that you're constantly being zapped by various things streaming through the universe. Well, what are those things? Those are, of course, thoughts that are driven by little Nissa. That's what it is. Whenever that spark of invention occurs, that's our team doing what it does best.
Yes.
Which is ensuring that these ideas are getting out there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, so I can certainly resonate with that, that idea. That's brilliant. So, okay, so how there must be a lot of preparation time for this. This one night. I mean,
absolutely. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, when you consider the scale of the operation that we're dealing with, and it's a delivery to 7+ billion people around the world. In various formats, and I mean, we do have some staggering of it. There are some traditions that we like to support that have offshoots that do things on the saint after which I am most known is obviously Nicholas, and that is the 6th of December, which is the Saints' Day, and there are various traditions that have a lot of presents given around there. So it's a good fail-safe system for us to sort of test. So we can run the sort of the 6th of December deliveries, find out that there are sort of a debugging process almost, so that when we come to the 24th and 25th, we're making sure that everything is up and running. But it is a huge exercise. And we do have a very long lead time on the whole process, and we have the countdown it's looking good. With the feedback that we've had from the tests, I can see on the metrics over here, were that actually the 6th went very well. All deliveries went as anticipated. No major glitches. But it's a year-long process. Of course, we have to do that, and we've been doing this for a long time, clearly. But you want to make sure that you don't sort of get complacent. So we're constantly looking at processes of continuous improvement. So we don't sit on our laurels. I mean, we've got to make sure that the reindeer are in tip-top condition for their warping of the space-time continuum. And we have to make sure that whatever potential technical upgrades we need to input into the sleigh are there. And when you're talking about, I mean, we have just one bag. I mean, there is one sack. But of course, that is an infinitely large bag, that sack. I mean, that literally you could fall into that and just vanish if you weren't careful. So we have to make sure that all the safety protocols are in place. If one of the Nissa disappears, we actually had that. We did lose Bernard. Bernie, unfortunately, he was a very enthusiastic little chap. And he was due to work on he was tinkering around with we have a special drawstring at the top.
Yeah.
And we were going to upgrade that. He found he got snagged, and he was tugging on it. And unfortunately he slipped and disappeared into the sack. And that was 2 years ago, and we haven't seen him since. We did think about sending in some small helpers. Unfortunately, apparently he needs. This is apparently a terrorist, because it looks like he's being wiped out. Can you see why is it? Yeah. Why is it not accepting?
Yes, it's really strange. Actually. Oh yeah. Oh yes.
Oh, there we go. There
we
go.
Yes.
Yeah, that's Eddie. That's Eddie. Eddie's a super chap. He did offer to go in and look for Bernie, but we felt that the risk of losing another Nissa was a little bit, let's not send good after
he will probably turn up somewhere.
Absolutely. And you never know. I mean, what the beauty of this thing is, if Bernie may well come back at some stage, poke his head out of the sack, and come back with some absolutely fantastically, brilliantly useful information.
Yeah.
So it's not a loss. It's not a loss. We celebrate Bernie. We have Bernie's Day, which is the 23rd, which was the day that he went missing. We celebrate that as Bernie's Day, in the hope that at some stage in the future, on Bernie's Day, he will reappear with some outstanding recommendations for improvements on the systems. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, I get that. So tell me a little bit about this this Black Peter guy.
Yes, he's a bit of a problem for the brand. That is, yes, he's one of our little sort of Dutch offshoots. We did set up a small operation. This is going back several hundred years now, actually, of course, back to the sort of the time of the various European empires and so on and so forth. But yeah, he's an odd one. We have been trying to, when we talk about being an inclusive organization, we are looking, I mean, there are traditions, and traditions are traditions are traditions, but yeah, Sword Peter, it's a bit awkward, that one, I've got to say. It's one of those hangovers from colonial pasts.
Yeah, because it's a little bit disturbing. Well, I find it disturbing.
It's extremely disturbing, I've got to say. But then so is Krampus. But that's just those bloody Bavarians going crazy, and they have a sort of I mean, there is a strong history. Of course, it comes from the pagan aspect of what we do. And what we used to do is of course, we are not just this kind of whiter than white thing. Where there is light, there is darkness. Yes. And so you can't see the light without something to throw it into some relief. Yeah. And that's what we think about sort of Black Peter is it is what it is, but we will do our bit to cancel it out. But I think people have to come to the light themselves. And realize that some things outlive their logic or their usefulness, and it's one of the older things. It's where the brand intersects with humans. We have this issue that sort of humans tend to grab what we do and make it more about themselves than the idea it is. And that's where these things tend to happen, where you end up with things that go very off-brand.
Okay, that brings me to another point, actually, because that is a fascinating point you just raised there.
Yes,
because I think obviously there is a problem for humans to try and grasp the complexities of things, and we tend to end up with a simplified, reductive philosophy, if you like, or a theology or theurgy or whatever you want to call it. It just seems to be like we're sort of grasping at straws to try and make sense of something that's sort of unknowable. And I think, obviously the case in point, of course, is the life of Jesus.
Yes.
And the fact that we've got this, it spawned an extraordinary, disturbing set of ideas that seem to be completely unrelated to anything that he actually did.
Totally. A super chap, met him several times. He was an absolute cracking carpenter. Unfortunately, I can't turn the camera around, but he did knock together an absolutely fantastic set of shelves that we use here, and an infinitely large chest in which I keep a number of the larger presents that I put together. So yeah, absolutely bonzo chap, really super. But unfortunately, you're absolutely right that in the same way that we find the Christmas brand, the Santa brand is compromised to people's own venal ends. So have actually many of the religions. Let's face it, that
Yes.
people instead of taking the religion or their belief and using it for a sense of personal development and goodness, they use it to judge other people. And that is one of the things that we like to think that with the Christmas brand, with the Santa brand, that it's an opportunity actually to step away from some of that. Yes. For a moment, it's an opportunity for people to sit there and go, actually, I don't need to be cross about stuff. I could actually spend some time being a bit nicer about it. And that's why we say that whilst Christmas itself is a once a year thing, the essence of Christmas, the essence of that peace and goodwill to all men, and as we call it, hashtag don't be a dick, that is what we feel is the important thing that we should focus on and encourage. It is lovely. It is lovely. And I often say this to the team when we're prepping, is that we want to give the happiness in such a way that people feel that it is not something that should only exist for a week or a month. It's something that people should try and spread out over the whole year. We have looked at perhaps sort of trying to spread the how Christmas is run and delivered over the full 12 months of the human year. But of course, I mean, it's finding booking time in that calendar. It's quite tricky. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that people are focusing on. And making the whole sort of snow in. I mean, it works in the Southern Hemisphere. But we're not entirely sure that people would completely understand, for instance, having a Christmas vibe in June or July or August in the Northern Hemisphere. Right. I mean, the guys in the Southern Hemisphere, that's what they're used to. Yes. And they are a little confused sometimes when we pitch up and there's a trail of snow behind us, and then suddenly it sort of evaporates in the 40-degree temperatures in Sydney or whatever. Yeah. But it's still taken as a brand, as a thing. And we would love to try and get that out of over the whole of the year, but yeah, it's a crowded schedule. And we have to leave room for other people, other festivals, and so on. Yes. It's respect. It would be like trying to have Glastonbury for 365 days a year. Yeah, I mean, quite a. Well,
you couldn't have Coldplay playing for that long.
No, you couldn't. And let's face it, there aren't enough mushrooms in the world to keep people going for that long. So, exactly. So we have to be practical about these things.
Yeah, totally. So just a sort of thought, I've also always been interested in some of the other festivals that happened around that sort of, as we would have called it, the winter solstice.
Yes.
Like the Saturnalia.
Exactly.
That sort of stuff. I mean, have you got any sort of fond memories of those sort of things of the past?
Definitely. I mean, Saturnalia was always a bit of a Biza Bonza doodah. I've got to say, there are some Saturnalias that I don't particularly have full recollection of.
No, it's a bit like the 60s. If you can,
it is absolutely. I mean, there are some in the team that sort of rue the passing of that, and we do have a review every so often, and we'll have a get together sort of after a day's sort of reviewing of tasks and so on, and sit down and look at some of the old footage from previous Saturnalias.
They were good.
They were. Yeah, I mean, there is what happened in Saturnalia stays in Saturnalia.
I could imagine.
We have to be very careful about what we reveal. Because not that it's a bad thing. I think that it's a very, very good thing that we have this thing, but it's perhaps not age relevant. So it was a little bit more sort of, there was some I mean, we have the intersection with Bacchus as well. That kind of happened. And there was a lot of very fine wine, and so on was consumed at some site. And that tradition lives on. We have sort of moderated it somewhat, and turned that into things like Glühwein and Gluck and mulled wine and so on in various traditions. And we turned it out. We've kept the sort of the feeling of that sort of aspect of Saturnalia, but perhaps just with a little less sort of nudity.
Yeah. But the thing is, I mean,
we still do the body painting, but that's under the clothes, of course.
Yeah. But as I say, you've only got to go to somewhere like Newcastle, and most sort of Friday, Saturday nights, and it's sort of pretty much that.
Yeah, that is what happens, but I mean, there is this very curious. I do believe actually, the closer you get to the Tyne, there is some kind of strange warping that happens.
Yeah.
The Geordies are a force unto themselves. They do live in quite often in sub-zero temperatures, but do insist on walking around in t-shirts and shorts, regardless of that. And I'm not entirely sure they actually have blood. I think it's ice, iced
or
water,
alcohol.
Or actually, yes, yeah. I was trying to be kind. It's probably antifreeze, actually, but
possibly.
This is Newcastle. This is Newcastle we're talking about.
Yeah.
How do we initiate, man?
That's very good. You must have hung around there quite a bit.
Well, like I say, what happened in Saturnalia stays with Saturnalia.
Okay. Yeah, I got that. That's good.
It was. I got to say that was purely for the sake of research.
Yes, I could.
If any of that footage gets out, yes.
That's cool. So just one other point. I mean, have you got any sort of plans, for the next couple of years? Because we've had a bit of a weird time.
Yeah.
As you're probably aware, over the last couple. Well, actually, it's not really the last couple of years. It's been at least the last 15 years, probably even more.
Yes.
And I mean, most people just focus on whatever the thing that's right in their face. But
yes,
obviously. Yes. We're seeing, if you stand back a lot, you can see a whole series of things going on. Do you think, okay, yeah. But any sort of ideas, that maybe?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, whilst the power of Santa is immense, and we have technologies that allow for significant bending of space-time continuums and so on, we are not one to start messing around with people's free will. Unfortunately, that is down to people themselves, and that is, I mean, we do, as I say, we have the hashtag Don't Be a Dick. That might appear at various places, and that is fundamentally what we're getting at. We're trying to find a way of existing in this new multi-screen environment in a way where people can understand that actually being nice to people for a change is actually quite a good idea. And I think the problem is you mentioned it earlier, where there is this intersection between a fantastic idea and the venality of humanity.
Yes.
And once you start putting those two together, the people will start to mess around with the idea and bend it to their own purposes, which is why I think we're very, very conscious of guarding the Christmas brand around the concept of what it is, rather than trying to do anything else. And there is also a sense of it ain't broke, so don't fix it. But there is a need, you're absolutely right, for people to sort of stop and draw breath, and be a little less self-obsessed about stuff. And that is one of the things, I think a lot of adults find that it is the process of giving that becomes the pleasurable thing. rather than the receiving. And the older you get, I think that's something that I think a lot of adult humans do tend to feel that, and that's something that we would encourage, and that is why it is so important. And I suppose the best that we can do, even in times such as planet Earth has endured in the last couple of years, particularly, is to remember that you have to give of yourself to feel the benefit of it. It is about what you put out there, you will get back 1,000-fold. And that goes both ways. So if you are a bit of a plonker, then you will be replonkered many, many, many times over. The opposite is true. If you are a good soul, then that will come back at you. That is something that is a constant, I think, in the universe. We don't mess with that. No. That's not our job. The universe will take care of that. But what we will do is offer an insight to people that perhaps being less self-obsessed is not a bad idea. It's a great way to feel fulfillment and happiness. Is definitely what we're going for. Do things that you love for the right reasons. And the reward will come in its own way to you in due course.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic way to finish the podcast.
Jolly good.
I think that really sort of sums up the whole message.
Absolutely.
And I thank you for taking the time to speak to me, because I know you're incredibly busy. And
absolutely.
I'm always very, very pleased to have people on the podcast.
And it's a delight. It's a delight. It's nice to take a break and have a quick coffee and then a chat with a human being who's doing his best to do the right thing as well. So,
well, thank you very much.
I think it's absolutely it's no problem at all. Glad to have spent the time with you, sir.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Well, that's been a pleasure.
Absolutely, at our end too, and I won't let the cat out of the bag. But you're on the right list this year.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Oh, that makes a change then.
Well, ho 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 and all that.
Ho ho ho.
Ho ho ho. Merry Christmas, everyone.
And to you. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Well, I like having interesting people on the podcast, and that, of course, was no exception. So thank you very much to St. Nicholas for his time. I know he's very busy at the moment, and I think it only leaves me to say have a Merry Christmas and a prosperous and happy and healthy New Year. And so I'll see you probably next year. See you then.